Hello and welcome to another episode from the Water's Edge. And today you catch up with us at Reepham Fisheries on what only can be described as a freezing day. It was actually a frost last night, but that is half the reason why we're out. And we're actually not been fishing long, and we're connected to the first fish at the moment. He looks like an angry common from what I've seen. But the reason why we're out today in such cold conditions is because most people think that this is the time and they don't come out, and they think the fish don't feed and potentially there's nothing to catch. But fishing the right methods, there's always fish to be caught, even on the hardest days. So the method we've chosen is Dobbing Bread, slightly controversial, but fished in the right way, that can be some really good session to have. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about why it's controversial and what the method is, but I'm just going to concentrate on getting this fish in, and hopefully we can have a much more detailed look once we've landed it. Well, there we are. What a great start. We've probably been fishing, I don't know, 10-15 minutes maybe, and we've hooked the first fish. And like I said, in conditions like this, where potentially people are sitting at home, it's an absolute block of ice. Little common, he is freezing. He's going a bit mental. See if we can control him a little bit. But that is what we're out for. Winter fishing, catching fish. And it is all about choosing the right method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip this little fella back, and then we'll have a little bit more detailed look at the rig and exactly how you fish it. But certainly we're off the mark, and I think there's a few more fish out there for us yet. There we are. He's brightened up our early morning start, but I think I should have brought some heater for my hands. They're absolutely frozen. But a little bit more now about the method and about how we fish it. But first of all, I mentioned there that dobbing across the match fishing circuit is a little bit controversial. I'll put my view on it. It's not correct, but this is how I see it. So dobbing basically is where you don't actually feed anything, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to spot fish or drop a bait somewhere suspended in the water column where you think they're sitting. If you can see them, it's brilliant, because you can put the bait right in front of them, they snatch it. But it doesn't have to be when you can see them. If you put it in areas like they are, so we've got a reed bed to our right, we've got a sunken lily bed to our left, so areas where fish are going to sit, and we're putting baits right in front of their face. But the reason I think people potentially sometimes don't like it, a lot of times I hear people say there's no skill involved, you're just dropping your bait in front of fish. Well, yes, you are dropping in front of fish, but there certainly is an element and a way that you can do it correct. If you look at results and people who do this a lot, there's certain people are winning and catching more than everyone else. So there must be some element of difference they're doing and skill involved, in my opinion. And the other side of it, from fishery owners, which I can also understand, some fisheries ban it because you're not actually feeding the fish. People are coming out and catching hundreds of pounds worth of fish sometimes, and they've not fed a single thing. And you can imagine you've got everyone around the lake doing that. There's actually getting no food into the lake, and the fisheries then got to start thinking about feeding the fish. So that's a little bit why it's controversial. But for me, if it's the method you're going to come out and catch on, I think we're all the same. Would you rather sit here and catch, or would you rather sit there, put loads of bait in and catch nothing and feed the fish? You can decide, you put your own spin on it, but that's just how I see it. So that's that out of the way. We'll look a little bit more about the rig. So the rig itself is incredibly simple. I've got two rigs with me today. This one here is only fished about a foot deep. Now, crazy this time of year. I said there's a frost this morning, but it's not very deep here. It's only about 3 foot. And because I've got some really good features around, like I said, the reed bed and the sunken lily bed, I can see a few fish swimming about a foot deep. So what I'm trying to do is lower that bait right in front of them on the path they're swimming. And if I can lower it right where they are, they don't have to turn and expend energy to feed as they would on the bottom. It's just there in front of them, and they can't resist it. So all I'm doing is punching out 3 or 4 discs of bread, nipping them the air out of them so it sinks, and then basically that will lower down right in front of them. I've got 2 rigs today. This one's my shallow rig, and the other one's a deep rig. So that will be fished anywhere from a couple of inches from the bottom all the way up to the top. Obviously not surface fishing, but from about a foot deep. So you can search out that whole water columns where they're sitting. Shot wise, I like to keep everything really spaced out or right at the top of the float, so you get a really slow fall of the bread. a lot of the time you'll find is they'll snatch it on the way down as it's a natural drop. If you put shot down there and really hammered it down to the bottom, it's unnatural, and I think you'd catch less fish doing it. So in essence, it's quite a simple way of fishing, but when they don't really want to feed, they don't want to expend energy, putting it right in front of their face is definitely the way to catch a few more fish. So I'm going to punch a couple more discs out now. There's a few fish that I can see. I'm going to concentrate on this sunken lily bed to my left to start with, and it's about, so it's sort of dead this time of year, but I can see sort of a few roots that the fish are sitting in. It's about 2 foot deep, 1.5 foot deep towards the surface, and that's exactly where those fish are sitting. So a couple of discs punched out, literally nip that on the hook, and then we're going to swing that out in front of fish, and hopefully another one's going to grab it. So I'm going to get out there now, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about tweaks you can do and additional things you can do to get that extra bite later on throughout the session. There we are, there's another fish. Took a little bit of persuading. I've seen 3 or 4 fish swim in and out of that dead lily bed that I mentioned, and they really don't want to know, to be honest. And this is what I was saying, that with all the will in the world and the best angler and the best bait, I'm not convinced that these fish that I'm seeing and hooking, that you could actually get them to go down to the bottom and feed. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be fish out there that are below these fish that you can't see, and those would definitely be catchable on the bottom, but to the extent and to the level of potentially fish that you can see and drop in front of, I'm not so sure. And I think the match wins and the people doing this successfully at the moment, I think the results are speaking to themselves, that when it is just this cold, I mean we would have been borderline cat ice on the top here today, and I'm just not convinced that you'd catch the level of fish that you'd need to on the bottom. And it's crazy to think that we're catching these fish anywhere from like 1 foot to 2 foot deep here when it is that cold. And I know, like I said, this lake is only sort of 3.5 foot deep, so perhaps a little bit of a misconception, but fishing this at 3 or 4 foot deep in a 6 foot lake works just the same. You just need to put it in situations where fish are. If they're in snags, or there's snags and reeds and lilies, they're gonna be fish there, and this is the perfect way of catching them. But I'm gonna concentrate on getting this one in, and then the tally will be racked up to 2 in potentially no more than 20 minutes fishing, perhaps. There we go, fish number 2. Try and sneak that hook out, but it started to rain, which has made the day even more enjoyable. But there you go. I mean, what we're sitting there, 1.5 foot perhaps. Like I said, absolutely mental this time of year, but you're putting it right in front of where they're sitting. There's a warmer layer you tend to find somewhere in the water column, and if those fish are sitting in it, that's where you need to be putting your bait. But a little mirror this time, racking them up. We've done a column, we've done a mirror. We're getting cold, we're getting wet, but we're catching, and that is the most important thing about fishing. We'll slip him back, a couple more discs of bread, see if we can't attempt another one. Well, we've managed to find another fish. It's taken us a little time actually, and that area over there at the dead lily bed has gone a bit dead. I can't see too many fish there no more, and I've changed the depths a bit and it's gone a bit funny. So all I did was these stick ups here to my right, I've moved over to them, and I've just sort of lowered the bread in and out of places just down across the edge there. I don't want to go right in there because I think I'd struggle to get them out, but just on the edges I can see a few of the reeds knocking, and then the float's gone under and we've connected to ones. Well, there we are. The hook has just pinged that in the net, so that was very lucky. Just take that out and we'll have a quick look at him. absolutely freezing. Everything we've caught today is like holding a block of ice, but they are willing to pick up little bits and pieces if you put it right in front of their face, and that is literally what it's all about. Putting it literally so they can't resist it. If you can almost put it in their mouth, it's hard to do because you can't always see them, and I've had to go perhaps a little bit deeper for that one, but you just keep, I don't know, move your bait every minute or so, drop in a different place, and you'll be in a chance of potentially putting it right in front of one's face. But let's slip him back and we'll see if we can get another one. He's gone back nice and safe for another day for someone to enjoy, hopefully. But while we're out, there's a couple of other tips that I can hopefully talk you through if it does get harder, like it has done for me. That's taken a little while to get that bite. But the first thing to mention is the difference, or the distance, if anyone's noticed, from the tip of a pole to my float is quite long, and that is on purpose because when it gets cold like this, the water goes so much clearer than it does in summer when they're stirring it all up and eating loads of food. So with the clarity of the water being so clear, you don't want the pole tip over their head, so it's quite important to have a reasonable distance of line between your pole tip and your float, just so you can almost swing your bait and then get your pole out of the way. So you don't want it right on top of them because they really do spook off at this time of year. And then as a final tip, I'm just going to bait this one up now. So I'm just 2 discs, nipping them together and literally just side hooking them almost like as you would a maggot as well. But bread for me works so well for this because it goes into the water, it swells up and goes so fluffy, and it's more resistible. You could do it with white maggot or something like that if you wanted, but to make bread even more appealing sometimes, a little squirt of a flavour or a colour never goes amiss. And all that does is just puts an extra scent in the water, makes them home in on that little bit easier, and then as it fluffs up, wham, hopefully that's when you're going to catch them. And if I was going to give you an idea or a tip for what flavour to use when the water is colder in the winter months, I would use something relatively acidic. It just cuts through the water a lot better, so either a fruit flavour or a citrus flavour is something that I'd go for. This one was tutti frutti, it's a beetling, really sweet, so it just makes it that bit more appealing when the bites are a bit harder to come by. But I'm going to get back out there. I'm potentially going to leave that reed line alone for a little bit now, just for 5 or 10 minutes, let it recover because there's a little bit disturbance. So I'm just going to swing back out towards that dead lily bed and see if there's anything there. Like I said, I've gone slightly deeper, potentially 2 foot now, and see if there's, can almost put it in front of one like I've said a few times, but I'm going to give it 30-40 seconds, move it a foot, same process again, and just keep searching your swim all throughout the day. Got another one just coming in now. I think the addition of that flavour has actually really made a difference. The fish just find that bread that little bit quicker. Not that it's not attractive enough on its own, because you will catch on its own, but as it fluffs up, you've got that sweetener and a different bit of colour and more smell. I just think that extra little bit certainly gets you a bite. And I'm not sure how much longer we're going to give it, to be honest. We've only got a few hours. I'm going to go and watch the football tonight, so I potentially might call this one the last fish, but I hope that it's shown you exactly what is achievable on conditions that potentially people wouldn't even bother coming out in. And it's not that you can't catch, you just need to be picking the right methods, the right bait, and potentially as well, you need to be in the right swim. This has got everything. It's got reeds, lilies. It's the perfect swim for this, but if you can put yourself in that situation, you'll definitely be catching some more fish. Well, there we go. A nice little one to end on. Well hooked. The beauty about fishing like this is you always hook them right in the top lip. so the hook holds are perfect. But what a cracking little fish to end on. And for me personally, like I said, this method comes with a little bit of controversy over the last few years, but I'd rather be out here doing this, catching fish, than I would be struggling, or even worse, sitting at home doing nothing. So if you haven't got out there and give it a go, get yourself on the bank, get yourself the equipment you need, a loaf of bread, it costs under £1, and you can have some brilliant days fishing. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I've certainly well chuffed and pleased we came out to give this a go. We're going to slip this one back and we're going to head off home. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.